Hi, welcome back to Introduction to Lincoln Douglas. Today, we are looking at some of the weirder parts of a normal LD case. Now that may sound like a bit of a contradiction. And here's why. I mentioned this a session or two ago, but I'm gonna say it again because it is important. There's no one right way to do an LD case. And so when you get into it, when you go to a tournament, for example, or depending on how big your club is, maybe even in your club, you'll run into arguments and you'll run into parts of arguments that are weird that you haven't really encountered before. And a lot of new debaters and a lot of debaters who are new to Lincoln Douglas will sort of find these things and hear them and go, is that legal? Can they do that? The answer is yes, they can do that. It is legal. A lot of it isn't a good idea, but it is in fact legal. So I want to familiarize you with some of the weirder parts of Lincoln Douglas debate cases, some of the more common weirder parts. So that's what we're going to be doing in this session, just so that you aren't surprised when you hear them. Now, we're going to look at 4 or 5 things. First, something called resolutional analyses. Again, simple idea, stupidly ridiculous, complicated word. Resolutional analysis. This is a really fancy way of saying, here's what the resolution means. That's all it's saying. So to go back to our pretend resolution, which you probably should start memorizing at this point, resolved, when in conflict, governments ought to value safety over liberty. A resolutional analysis might be something like, resolution specifies conflict. Why would you need to say that? Well, suppose your opponent got up, and suppose you were the affirmative. So you're saying that when in conflict, governments ought to value safety over liberty. And your opponent, the negative, got up and said, the government is just going to go around and intrude on our privacy and listen to all our phone calls, and they're going to take away all our rights and destroy our liberty, all because of safety. Well, you can stand up and you can say, but the resolution doesn't say governments should always value safety over liberty. The resolution says when they are in conflict, government should value safety over liberty. So that's an example of a resolutional analysis. They're very helpful. And again, when you get into advanced Lincoln Douglas, you'll find that actually they're really, really helpful. You can use them to manipulate the round a little bit, but we'll get to that in another course. But that's what a resolutional analysis is. 2. Something called a reason to prefer. Now this normally shows up when people are done talking about their value. So they'll have their value. What's a value? Value is a main goal. So they'll be talking about their value, their main goal, and then they'll get up and they'll say, now my reason to prefer is blank. Now what's the reason to prefer? All that's saying is, here's why you should go with my goal instead of my opponent's goal. Here's why my goal is more important than my opponent's goal. That's literally it. So, for example, if the affirmative has a value or a goal of protecting life, and the negative has a value or a goal of limited government, the affirmative might say that the reason to prefer life over limited government is that life is a human right. That would be a reason to prefer life over limited government. That's all reasons to prefer are. 3, subpoints. These are fairly basic. You know what subpoints are. These will sometimes show up under contentions normally. So people will say, my contention is, and then they'll read their tagline, the title of their contention, and then they'll say subpoint A, and it's just a way to break out your contentions a little bit further. Pretty basic. Finally, are examples. Now, examples actually are not a weird part of Lincoln Douglas debate. Examples you'll see in almost every case, and they should be in yours. An example is often used to illustrate your contention or the main point of your case or something like that. Normally, they are historical stories, so an event that happened in history that sort of illustrates whatever you're wanting it to illustrate, whether it's a particular argument or the main point in your case. So, for example, if I was arguing that governments valuing safety over liberty saves lives, I might want to go to the history books and find a place where a government valued safety over liberty and ended up saving lives. And I could say, see, this is one one line of proof, something that suggests that I am in fact right when I say that valuing safety over liberty protects life. One other thing. Sometimes debaters will call these applications. Don't ask me why debaters call these applications, but they do. Don't be thrown off. It's the same thing as an example. And in fact, when you're writing your case, I would recommend saying example. So the homework for this session is to go back. At this point, you should have a list for both sides, for the affirmative and the negative side. You should have a list of 3 values, 3 criterions for both the affirmative and the negative side. Now what I want you to do is I want you to, for both sides, pick a value and a criterion for both sides and come up with 2 or 3 contentions that fit that value or that criterion. You may see what I'm starting to do. I'm having you basically start constructing a case. But what I want you to do is I want you to pick one of those pairs for both sides and come up with 2 or 3 contentions to fit that pair. That's your homework for this session. Now, you may be struggling to come up with things at this point. That's perfectly fine. Don't worry if you can't. Don't worry if you find that you're having a hard time coming out with contentions. Just do your best and come up with as many as you possibly can. Next time, we're going to look at another really important part of Lincoln Douglas called flowing.